Ah yes, finally I got the biggest battleship in the game! Welcome aboard the IJN Musashi, heaviest, biggest, meanest battleship, invincible, except if you get shot at by bots. Thanks, Gaijin. That was anticlimactic. Ugh. Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. So, today's napalm recommendation of the day for this video is to get some snacks, get yourself your favorite drink, and just enjoy the show. Make yourself comfortable, because this video, as you can see, is a single battle lasting for just over 30 minutes, and it is quite adequate for this absolute monster of a ship. And we have a very successful battle under good starting options by not immediately blowing up and basically not getting shot for the remainder of this battle. And I think this is not a first impressions video style. Instead of just, running down the numbers and making some comparisons, I will make here and there some mild comparison. I want to talk about the overall feel of this ship, what to expect, and the obvious glaring weakness. And I wanna more compare it to her sister ship, the IJN Yamato. And we start at the tech tree, and we praise the snail for a change. No, they haven't paid me to do this. In fact, there will be some criticism, underlying criticism, but it's not the fault of the Musashi or how she got introduced, but more with the IJN Yamato. So the first thing, both are at rank 7 and both are at battle rating 8.7 with the biggest guns in the game with really thick armor. This is more than adequate to play with the big boys because they are literally the big boys. In fact, they share the exact same tonnage of 72,809 tons, which is heavy. And the majority of the other stats are also the same. Same speed, same armor thickness, same armor layout, except for some of the secondaries. But here is my problem, or here is a good thing actually. Both are not in a folder, but both are actually in separate lines. While the Yamato, starts on the very most left lane, in the Fuso line. The Musashi is in the Amagi line, which is the second from the left. And so now, if you went down the Amagi line, and you equipped also the Amagi, as I personally would recommend, with a talisman, you can research the Musashi more efficiently. And when the Yamato was introduced, we also didn't have the IJN Nagato, the rank 6 battle rating 8.3 premium. Now, Nagato is way overpriced, I talked about it, and now we actually can research without penalty, and that is actually a good thing in my opinion. So the whole process is a bit more ironed out, a bit more grown up, I would say. Now, when it comes to the rest, armor, weaponry, etc., as I said, it's very much the same. And the guns are lethal. The guns are absolute monsters. The 460mm-45 Type 94 guns, of which you have 9, they cause a lot of damage. They have some of the highest penetration, even at range, in the game. At 10 kilometers, they still have 686mm of penetration. That is on par with the Sovietsky Soyuz, with the Iowa, and also with the Italian super 15-inch guns, at least in raw penetration numbers from the RN Roma. And I adore this. Now, the biggest weakness when you want to go for the ship is a weakness in the armor layout. And if you come from another game, if you have watched the Yamato video, if you have played the Yamato, you know this by yourself at this point. Because while we have thick bulkheads, really thick deck plating, and a very thick belt, you cannot angle the ship, but you never also have any sort of angle where you are safe from incoming fire. And that has to do with basically this diamond shape for the front magazine and the rear magazine. So you can also not reverse angle because then your rear magazine is exposed. And basically the bulkhead and the belt do not meet at roughly 90 degrees, but actually somebody shortened the armor box and cut out some edges. There is still really thick armor, and I see where the designers went, because if you look at an angle at the ship where you expect at range to come some incoming shells from the falling angle, you know, the plunging fire angle, and you look at the belt thickness, it is over 500 millimeters thick in effective thickness. And so is this armor cheek, I would call it, because it is a mere 350 millimeters. That's really thick, thicker than the majority of belts of battleships in the game. And it is at a heavy angle of 45 degrees and a constructional armor slope of 23 degrees. So it is more like 600 millimeters, I would say. But I don't know if there is an armor bug. I don't read through the forum post. I do not care about the forums. And I would love to do some test shooting with a sub here and there, or subscriber I'm talking about, to just see how weak your guns can be and still detonate a Musashi or Yamato. And that is just what absolutely destroys the ship for me. And that is one of the reasons why I think the Sovietsky Soyuz is so similar to the Yamato, but doesn't have this weakness, which makes it feeling so overpowered, if that makes sense. And that is just this I don't know if it's a design flaw from the original designers, you know, the Japanese Yamato class designers, or if there is some weird interaction going on that makes the shells misbehave and ignore the armor. But let me tell you, it is not just a weak spot, it's a big one, and it is absolutely fatal, because the magazines are as big as some cruisers, I'd say, and they are above the waterline. So once the armor is breached, that's an automatic ammo cook-off, and it's not a shell detonation ammo explosion, it's a full-blown absolute destructive one-hit wonder. And that is a shame, because you cannot take any risks. You are the absolute definition of a glass cannon, and that absolutely destroys the survivability of the ship. I could take belt hits and plunging fire hits to the deck armor, which is highly impressive with over 200 millimeters, and even in the side strips, where it's some weird sort of semi-turtleback of 230 millimeters. It is really thick armor. I mean, the turret faces are 660 millimeters thick at an angle. It's absolutely fantastic. And, you know, this armor layout, it just doesn't work in the game. It's true apparently for some other games as well, but this is what we are not concerned in this battle, and we can enjoy the effect of our shells on enemy battleships. Yes, I'm shooting a lot of bots, but as you can see, I need to cut down the numbers. I need to kill them, because yeah, the rest of my team doesn't seem to enjoy being inside of the circle, while the enemy team describes this as their home waters, as their personal harbor, and I cannot have that. So I'm focusing on the ships that I can destroy and really try to make an impact, just like this or like that. And again, the guns are the biggest in the game, but they have similar penetration values to some 16-inch guns out there, especially the Russian ones and the US 16-inch-50s, also at range. And you have not the greatest DPM. It's not bad, but 31.7 seconds, that is less than 18 rounds per minute, right? And a lot of other nations' battleships have 30 seconds or less reload, and yeah, that is what also makes the Nagato with its ridiculous 21.5 seconds so dangerous as an opponent. And, well, everything is dangerous to you as you are to it, mostly. Unless you're firing at a Sovietsky Soyuz which is angled at range. Then you have the time of your life. So, how does the ship feel? It feels really powerful. It feels really mighty. The guns are reliable. They are usually precise enough to, hit what you're aiming for. When it comes to the AA, it's not really that important. If somebody at this battle rating wants you dead with an aircraft, they're going to find a way. And even the Yamato in her 1945 configuration, all that 25mm, that doesn't really make a difference, does it? You don't have proximity fuse. I mean, we can go for a fantasy build, but then, you just basically pick a US AA defense screen and that's it. So what I think is really challenging is to find the spot where you can really make the advantages work. Now, you can see me being basically stationary here because I try to be in the circle but stay at range. And if I notice that somebody is shooting at me, I still arrange with the angling that they might not hit me precisely where it's really hurting, and I can dodge the shells a bit, right? I'm not the fastest battleship out there in terms of top speed. I'm also not the battleship that has the best horsepower to ton ratio, but still, if you just accelerate and you decelerate and you can throw off the enemy's aim, you can hope for increasing your chances of surviving the incoming salvo by the salvo basically missing your ammo rack, not by, increasing the angle of the armor plate. When it comes to the secondaries, yeah, cool. Now you have 9 of the 155mm guns. They have 4 secondaries. Rather good penetration. They have rather poor DPM per barrel, but overall they could help you if you would fight cruisers. But versus other battleships, no, they do not really help you. I gotta say, it's really fantastic and satisfying to hit enemy ships with those guns. I know it's colorful pixels, but it's one of those secrets of Gaijin to give everything a little bit of feel. And the Yamato certainly feels dangerous. It feels powerful. And you also have a bit better feel of scale, Whereas the other ship game that I played, you know what I'm talking about, that felt like a painting that you're playing, and it felt like model ships, tiny toy models, but not like commanding the actual thing. And with playing War Thunder, you're much closer to it. The scenario, the bots, the mechanics and so forth, they don't help it, but the feel of scale is more here. And we should not underestimate how important the feel is for this. Because if we would all act rationally, if we would all, do something useful with our lives, nobody would play War Thunder, right? It's about experiencing something that you have read about, that you have watched videos about. And I find it so heartbreaking that Gaijin misses here with the realistic battle mode so hard, making the mode viable. What I think where Yamato and Musashi would absolutely feel even better would be enduring confrontations. The problem for me is I never have time to play this and to make videos about it. And also my system kind of doesn't support the footage that I so far gathered as much as I would love to. and also making videos and cutting this, it just takes so much time. But it could be great. Let me know in the comment section if you would love to see some endurance confrontation gameplay on my channel. I doubt you would want to see this in actual length, you know, the several hours or so. But I guess you would love to see some highlights, right? Now, the thing is, the question is the Yamato class, if we would remove this armor weakness and the armor would work better, would it be then one of the best battleships in the game? And this is a question that I've asked myself about various ships that I played. And the question is really, how do you value the various factors, right? Now, what I want to say is, something that is really good is not automatically something that is fun. And one thing that I want to compare this with is the Bismarck. The Bismarck has fewer guns, much smaller caliber, inferior penetration values. It has thinner armor. It is a ship that in a real life fight, you know, as sterile as this scenario is, you know, calm sea, perfect weather, you know, would certainly not really make it. Just like this Nevada, this Bob Nevada. But in game, the Bismarck has several advantages. First of all, it can take much more punishment. And further, it also has this this much faster reload. And so you fire more at your enemy. And you have this ridiculous precision that I so love. And this is, you know, quite a coincidence that now we are targeting here the Gneisenau, which is a really fun ship. And has the same guns. And I'm always, again, surprised how effective the Gneisenau is. Even when getting shot with 18-inch guns, as you could see here. It is quite astounding. So, first we have to differentiate between fun and effectiveness. And some other battleships have the unfair advantage of being at much lower battle rating, where they face also cruisers. And yeah, you can club cruisers usually more efficiently than the majority of battleships. And I think this is something that I just throw out of the equation. When it comes to fun, I have so much fun at just hitting effectively what I'm targeting. So if I myself play different ships, you know, it depends on how effective those ships are and how precise their guns are. And with the Musashi and the Yamato, they are good enough for the caliber and the penetration values that they have. So sometimes you can miss the original point of target and still just absolutely decimate the enemy. Again, the shells are absolutely awesome. But again, other ships have faster reload and have equal penetration. And maybe they have more or fewer TNT equivalent bursting charges in terms of raw weight. But does that really matter? I think most of the time it is really important that you just hit and penetrate your target. And I think here the Italian battleships just showed us all how effective one can be with, you know, super light bursting charges. And yeah, I think the very first scene demonstrated this quite clearly. So this is already a point of how how important is armor anyway, or the raw armor thickness. And there are ships where the armor thickness matters, but there are also ships like the Germans with their turtleback that say, well, it's not all that important, man. It's not all that important, it's rather the armor arrangement. Obviously, thickness still has to be there, otherwise it would be useless. And yet, still, this will be the golden age of battleships, and this is something that I have not talked about, because more and more I hear talk of, first of all, submarines trying their introduction in War Thunder, which I oppose a lot, because it has failed in this other game, but then you could say, yeah, it was artificial and it's more arcadey. But also here, how do you want to introduce submarines? If they're on the surface, they are easy to destroy, even by some of the weakest secondaries out there, for even cruisers, right? And if you force them underwater, well, then they are really slow. Then all of a sudden, aircraft could have a field day with depth charges or big bombs with fuse delay, right? Because they are so easy to target because they are so slow. And those submarines, if they are submerged, don't have any sort of protection. So where do you want to let them spawn? Already in shooting range of the battleships in terms of their torpedoes, where the battleships then cannot avoid the torpedoes. That would be awful. So I think that's a different topic, but already you see where this is going. I only see this, see the introduction of submarines, the potential introduction, as a failure, either for everybody else or for the submarines. And the next thing is, well, at some point you can be guaranteed that we see post-World War II ships. We already have ships that, have a different date after 1945. But I'm talking about also with the technology in terms of, for example, missiles. Missile destroyers, missile cruisers that have, also the big missiles. And I'm not just talking about also the potential version of the Ava in her 1984 refit, something like that, where you shoot at enemies with absolutely supersized anti-ship missiles before enemy battleships even can turn their turrets. That would be quite awful, I guess. But anyway, no matter what, I think this is now the golden age of the famous World War II era battleships. And the golden age isn't all that golden because of so few players, such long queue times, all the things that Gaijin is doing with various mechanics and so forth. So this is a ship that sadly seems to be pointless, even though it is the biggest. And that makes me sad, and I'm really interested about your opinion regarding regarding this problem. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I mean, while you're sipping your favorite beverage and snacking your favorite snacks, think about that. When we were here a couple of years ago in this situation where we eagerly awaited, bigger and bigger battleships, did you think about it coming into play like this? I mean, I talked here and there about it. I was really pessimistic, and even my worst fears have been surpassed by Gaijin in that respect. Again, I absolutely love the feel of playing the ship, and when it goes well, then it's okay. And I also get my quick shot of endorphin whenever I sink something. And it dies down so quickly every time. And so there is a little bit of a bitter feel. And you can see that nobody is targeting me. On the one side, this is good because I can farm more or less effectively. And I personally enjoy a battle where I get 10 kills after roughly 25 minutes of playing, right? If it is some good quality time. But I also see why this is not appealing to many players. Because they want more faster action, and some other games or some other game modes maybe do this better. And that's also fine. That's why we have a selection of games. But we all expected more from Gaijin's War Thunder naval forces, didn't we? So I remember vividly how everybody was talking about, yeah, this is the other game's killer, right? And they will have no market share after this. But the truth is much different. And I hope that Gaijin rather improves than goes completely berserk or completely off the rails with future introductions, and or having already made a ridiculous plan that they will follow to the letter. But a player experience, I see why this is not the most desirable one. Again, let me know if you share my thoughts, or if you say, oh no, Napalm, this is actually just like I wanted it, just like we can expect it from a game that claims to be somewhat realistic. Because obviously it is difficult to get the devs and their supervisors on the one hand under the same head as the various different fractions of the player base. I myself think that if Gaijin would improve some of the more obvious flaws, that more players would actually play naval forces and actually make it more viable to, to invest even more development into the game mode. Because, at some point it's still raw around the edges, in my opinion. Obviously, people agree, disagree, whatever you think about the various different details. But honestly, going back to the Musashi herself, I kind of miss the duels with other players where the skill, matters. I mean, if both players have the same ship, then obviously a bit of skill matters, the targeting, the aiming, choice of ammunition, positioning, angling, you name it. But in this case, wait, can we see it? Yeah, look at this. How this ship gets tipped over like this. Physics, please behave. And yet, despite all the past experience, despite all the flaws that are there, I still think there is something great about this, other than the raw size. I cannot point my finger really to what is so good and what is still missing. It's a bit weird. But honestly, I feel always like I have to be quiet going through a room as being the elephant, right? As silent as it can be with 18.1-inch guns, if that makes sense. And this is this weird feeling about the Yamato class. And in other ships, they can be more fun, like the Bismarck, Gneisenau, Scharnhorst, But honestly, something like the Sovietsky Soyuz, I've read comments that say that one ship is ruining the game. Yeah, but it doesn't get played all that much, does it? I have just seen a handful of them, and that is the best battleship in the game. Maybe it's too good and too sterile for even the player base itself, right? maybe you feel no satisfaction getting kills with the Sovietsky Soyuz. Again, I just have seen a handful of them. But let me know in the comment section if you're a Sovietsky Soyuz player. Can we have a ban list anyway? So joking now. We have seen much worse introductions into the game over the years, over the more than the decade of War Thunder than the Sovietsky Soyuz. Remember the IS-7, the Object 120, and so forth? Yeah, there were really cruel introductions for the rest of the player base. In this case, not so much actually. It is very strong, but if you misplay it, you get punished for it, most likely. And also, what I really like is the gun sound. The gun sound of the Yamato class is extra spicy. It feels a bit forced, but also it's rather unique. And it has to be like this, I guess, for the biggest guns in the game. On the biggest battleships ever that saw service. Now, I think that this is a rather personal point of view, that I value stuff that's represented in the game that actually also saw service IRL. And a lot of people, I know some people that also reflect their pride and joy of their nation onto the ships that they play. I don't think that this is something healthy and something where you ever have peace with what you're doing in the game. But some do it, and I know those people. And maybe they are not the worst people ever. And obviously, this is where we get the classified documentations leaks, which are absolutely hilarious. But that's just me, I guess. So yeah, it's all about the feel, and the feel with the Musashi is weird. Let's have a quick look at the post-battle results. And yeah, I guess that counted the 16th kill. I know it's not the most ships destroyed ever, but even without a talisman and without a booster, we get 24,000 RP and over 200,000 silver lines. Again, if it would have been a premium ship, if it would have been like even a destroyer, we would have gotten so much more. But this is for a tech tree top of the line ship, and we did over 27,000 damage, which is absolutely fantastic. And I enjoyed this battle. I loved that it took a while, and I hope you don't wait too long before giving this video a like. Subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other as usual on the waves of War Thunder.